Good day, y'all. So today I want to talk about something that pressed on my heart this morning when I woke up. So I began to think about my nephew and how he's come a long way. I knew him from young, especially dealing with a speech impediment. So I went down this wormhole of just thinking about God and thinking about how the enemy loves to attack. I don't know how to say this, but like our gifts. He attacks our gifts, he attacks our purpose. And I know this is like a cliche conversation, but I'm going to give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about. So my nephew, from the time he was young, when he became able to speak, I always knew him to have the speech impediment. Very, 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 very heavy, right? Sometimes we was ask his mom, like, what did he say? Almost like when she was his translator, because she's around him most of the time. Well, all the time. That's her child. So it was really, really heavy. And then he grew this passion for the arts and things as that when he got a little older. So much so that my mom was having an event at her church, and she asked me to like maybe help her out, like, because she knew at my church I sang with my daughters sometimes. And she asked me to help, like, kind of put together things on a program that could go along with what they're doing at their church. So I remember my nephew was into doing like poetry, and I asked him if he can do it, and he was like, sure. And I was happy to do that because young people get in front of church like they won't do it, but he was so passionate about it. And let me tell y'all, when he got up there to perform, that speech impediment had no drag or no bondage on him. The words he spoke and the way he put it together was just like, whoa. And so imagine if he didn't get through that, you know what I mean? He wouldn't impact so many people. And then he does like poetry at other places and things, and he continues to write. And then I think about my daughter, who also, she has like a lisp. She has a lisp. And sometimes she's a little bit shy to speak. That's why I always know her as. But when she's speaking, when she says things, like, the wisdom sometimes surpasses me. Like, it surprises me. I'm like, whoa, this is coming out of this girl's mouth. And finally, I go up upon my story. And this is something I think back that happened during COVID. And I'm telling you, I felt like I literally was going to lose my life if I didn't make the right move. What happened was, I got sick with COVID, right? And I did, what I do, just rest, treat it like a virus, rest, some tea, and listening to my body, right? One day I woke up, it had to be like the second day of me dealing with it. One day I woke up and I coughed. I woke up and I just was coughing. And then I felt something get stuck, and it wouldn't, and I could tell like that cough wasn't going to get it through. So I'm like breathing like shallow instead of like deep breaths. And I walked out carefully not to use too much oxygen because I was literally afraid. Like, I could feel it there, like a big piece of snot, like blocking my airway. And so my daughters were coming downstairs at the apartment we was at the time. And they saw me and it was like, Mommy, are you okay? And I was like, the only words I could get out was 911. And I whispered it like what I can get out. And then they like freaked out because they never saw me in a condition like that. And so it was really hectic to the point where they was able to call 911. The operator asked the address, and they were just such in a panic. They couldn't even think. So I opened the door, and across from the hall was my neighbor, and I told them to knock on her door. And she came out, and she took the phone from them, and because she heard the operator asking the address, and they came pretty fast. So I went through the process of, when they brought me to the hospital, they hooked me up to the monitors and everything, and I was still there kind of like trying to control my breathing, knowing good and well, like, I felt like if I tried to speak or tried to cough, it would have further closed off any little bit of airway that I was getting. So as I'm waiting there for the doctor, after the nurse greet me and everything, telling me what's going on, the plan, I heard something say, "It's time to cough." And I didn't feel afraid no more. I felt sure about it. And so I kind of raised up my shoulders and shot out a big cough. Let me tell you, that clot was like the size of this hole. I tell you no lie. And I shot it right out in the garbage. And that's when I learned to listen and realize and hear the voice. Well, before that, but definitely so much so, I became more trusting of sensing voices like that come from God, that angel, wherever it was, Holy Spirit. I'm telling you, I knew that it was time to cough. Not in an ambulance, because they seemed frustrated with me because I would only write, because I knew it was like life or death if I would have moved or talked any further. So the doctor did come in, and he was like, "Oh, you're talking now, you're breathing out." And I'm like, "Yeah." And this was before any treatment, any breathing treatment, anything. But he told me, like, we don't do breathing treatments here because of the COVID and yada, yada, yada. And I just remember sitting there all that time waiting for the doctor, and I'm looking at the monitor. And even if I was making up in my head, like, the heart rate, the oxygen levels was like going off the charts. Like, my oxygen was like 76. Heart rate was like above 100 something. And those aren't normal. You want your oxygen at least to be above 92, 93 if you're dealing with oxygen issues. A normal healthy person like myself at the time should be at 98, 100. And so I say that to say this. The area that was attacked on my nephew was his tongue, and that's the most powerful tool that God gave him. The weapon of my daughter is my tongue. Like, the knowledge she gives is like profound. The encouragement she gives to people is profound. I'll tell you another thing on my daughter, as I'm reflecting, that sometimes gets attacked. Her hands would sometimes have these mysterious rash on it. I took her to the doctor. They tried to give it cream. We tried different things, and it just goes away on its own. They just appear. The only thing bad about it is she's pretty self-conscious about it. They don't itch. They don't hurt. They're not red. It's just the color of her skin. I done Googled everything known to man, and I work in the medical field, and I've never seen this before. The closest thing I've seen to it is something called hand, foot, and mouth disease, but she does not meet the rest of the symptoms. It's just a weird rash that appear on her hands time to time. And so, one time she showed me, the first time I saw it, we was in church and I was getting ready for praise and worship. And before church started, she came to me and said, "Mom, look at my hands." And I prayed for her. I don't know, I had this sense of peace, this sense of comfort. And she went back into, the congregation. I did praise and worship, and then after church, they were gone. So I'm like, oh, that surprised me. Not surprised me that God could heal, but it surprised me. So it's her tongue in her hands. And now let me tell you the tool of her hands. Jada is an excellent cook. So much so that my dad would sometimes like wait till she comes over and let her season it. This was when she was like 7, 8 years old. The other thing that's amazing about her hands, she loves to do things with beauty. Hair, lashes. Now it's lashes. But even from the time when she was 2, still in like onesies. You know the little ones with the pajamas with the foot? She would, if you sit on the couch, she'll stand behind you and start playing in your hair. This is like 1, 2 years old she was doing this. And I would always joke and say, well, maybe she'll grow up to do hair. This girl would take the bombest, craziest looking weave, and I would notice her go through the process where she's frustrated, like it's not turning out right, and she'll make something so beautiful. The things she does to her hair, I'm like, girl, come do me. We still working on that. She's good at her own hair, but she's starting to learn how to do it on other people's hair. But the things she does to her crown, her hair, like, I'm so impressed, like the speed of it. So, I pray God develop me into, exposing her to opportunities. But she's gifted with her hands. Now, I took a path talking about my nephew. His tongue was his gift. My daughter, tongue and hands. And then I get to me with my throat. At the time during COVID, I remember they shut down basically everything, including the churches. And we at first did telephone worship, telephone calls to do church. And then eventually when they did figure out how to get better with the technology, the pastor said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the whole 6 feet apart thing, but we're going to ask for 2 to 3 singers to sing, and we're going to record in church. This is when recording wasn't as popular, but now you see an explosion of it. Not just from the big churches, but the little churches are recording now. And so one of the praise and worship members, she said, because I wasn't going to do it. I'm like, shy. That's a long story to tell you how I got up there in the first place. But I'm shy. And she called me and she said, Melissa, Pastor Shaw said. And I was like, yeah, I saw what he wrote. She's like, we can do it together, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, all right, if you're going, I'll go it too. So I went to go do praise and worship. Something came up and she didn't show up. So I was like, man. So I can't remember what I sang. That's not the importance, but I remember I sang and I sang alone. And I was like, okay, this is not so bad. I don't have an audience in front of me. It's just the cameras. But I felt comfortable. God really kept me. And it next went to second Sunday, third Sunday, fourth Sunday. And it just got to the point where every Sunday I'm doing praise and worship by myself. And I truly enjoyed it, and it truly blessed me. And I say that to say this. For me to have that mucus in my throat like that, it's like he was trying to take me out. It was like he was trying to silence me. And so I'm going down this rabbit hole, just meditating on that word of how Moses was so shy about being God's mouthpiece, approaching the Pharaoh. And I wonder what else. Is it just me? Or have any of you experienced, those who kind of know their calling, their purpose, wherever that lines up for you, did you notice that was ever attacked? I like to hear that in your comments. You guys have a blessed day. Take care. Bye.